Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas and caused the Columbian Exchange. Smallpox. Smallpox had spread from the Europeans and wiped out many of the Native American tribes because they had no immunity to it. Tobacco. Tobacco was spread from the Native Americans to the Europeans when the Europeans observed the use of it and brought it back home. Horses. Horses were brought to the Native Americans by Columbus's expedition and were then used for travel and battle. Chapter 1. European motivations. Europeans explored to find new trade routes to Asia, gain wealth, gold, silver, and spread Christianity, known as the 3Gs, God, gold, glory, led to colonization, resource extraction, and religious conversion in the New World. Impact on indigenous populations. Diseases like smallpox caused massive population loss. Violence, slavery, and destruction of social systems followed. Indigenous peoples faced cultural disruption, land loss, and racism. Technological advancements. Better ships, caravel, navigation, compass, astrolabe, and maps made exploration possible. Weapons and military tactics gave Europeans military advantage, enabled long-distance voyages and conquests. The Columbian Exchange. Exchange of plants, animals, people, and diseases between Old and New Worlds. Europe gained potatoes, corn, tomatoes. Population growth. Americas gained horses, cattle, wheat. Lifestyle changes but also diseases. Positive, global diets improved. Negative, millions died from disease. Economic transformations. Rise of mercantilism, wealth equals power, and early capitalism. Colonies supplied raw materials. Europe gained wealth, created global trade networks and economic inequality. Religious impact. Christianity spread through missions and colonization. Clashes with indigenous beliefs caused cultural tension. The Catholic Church played a key role. The Reformation influenced rival empires' motives. Legacy of early globalization led to mixed populations, cultural blending, and modern economies. Still influences global inequality and debates on colonization today. Laid groundwork for modern globalization. Ethical considerations. Study history with empathy and multiple perspectives. Recognize that enslavement and genocide have no justification. Learning these topics is necessary to understand injustice and avoid repetition. Connecting past and present. Then, driven by exploration and empire. Now, driven by technology, trade, and communication. Both create opportunities and inequalities. Lesson: global connections have lasting consequences. Looking ahead, the world after 1492. 1492 marked the start of a connected world. Exploration and colonization reshaped global history. The modern world, economies, cultures, and borders, all stem from this period. Chapter 2. Cabeza de Vaca's route. Traveled from Spain. Cuba. Shipwrecked in Florida. Walked to Veracruz, Mexico. His journey showed the harsh realities of exploration and the vastness of the Gulf of Mexico. One of the first Europeans to explore the interior of North America. Columbus. Probanzas de Mérida. Letters of Justification. Columbus described the Caribbean as rich, fertile, and full of resources, exaggerating its value. Focused on wealth, gold, fertile land, and timid natives, reflecting European superiority and greed. Ignored indigenous perspectives, promoting colonization and conquest. Key takeaways: shows European priorities, gold, land, conversion, reminds historians to question bias and author's purpose, encourages using multiple perspectives and recognizing missing voices, indigenous peoples. Hernán Cortés arrived in Hispaniola, 1504, later conquered the Aztecs in Mexico, kidnapped and killed Moctezuma, destroyed Tenochtitlan, and renamed it Mexico City, used rival indigenous groups to defeat the Aztecs, classic divide and conquer strategy. Francisco Pizarro followed rumors of gold to Peru, captured and executed Atahualpa, Inca emperor in 1533. His conquests opened South America to Spanish control, was later murdered by rivals, showing the brutality among conquistadors. El Siglo de Oro, Spanish Golden Age, funded by American gold and silver, period of wealth, art, and literature e.g., Cervantes, Velázquez. Wealth came at the expense of indigenous labor and exploitation. Protestant Reformation learning goals. Understand how religious change reshaped Europe and its colonial ambitions. Spain's Catholic defense influenced colonization. Other nations, England, France, Netherlands, sought colonies to challenge Spanish power. Martin Luther, German priest who started the Protestant Reformation, 1517, challenged Pope's authority, indulgences, and insisted on faith and scripture alone, divided Europe into Catholic and Protestant states, fueling rival colonization. John Calvin, French reformer based in Switzerland, emphasized predestination, promoted Bible access for ordinary people, influenced Dutch Protestantism, which valued religious tolerance, seen in Dutch colonies. Protestantism in England. Henry VIII broke from Rome after being denied a marriage annulment, formed Church of England, seized Catholic property, enriching himself. England wasn't colonizing heavily yet but used privateers, pirates to attack Spanish wealth. Impacts of religious changes, wars of religion e.g., St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. Nationalism replaced religious unity, faith tied to state identity, sparked ideas of freedom, individuality, and separation of church and state. Reformation motivated migration, people sought religious freedom in the Americas. Challenges to Spanish supremacy. England, colonized the East Coast, U.S., Canada and Caribbean islands, used privateers versus Spain. France, settled Quebec and Caribbean islands. Martinique, St. Barts, St. Martin. Dutch, focused on trade. Naval power, controlled New York, New Amsterdam, and Caribbean islands like Aruba, Curaçao. Competition in the Americas became an extension of European religious and political rivalries. Chapter 3, The Mayflower Compact, 1620. First self-government agreement in the New World, signed by the Pilgrims aboard the Mayflower, created a civil body politic, an early form of democracy and majority rule, stressed obedience to just and equal laws for the good of the colony, influenced later U.S. ideas like self-government, social contract, and rule of law. Puritan society and religion, followed strict Calvinist beliefs, focused on predestination, only the elect saved. Conversion experience required for church membership. Very intolerant of dissent, e.g., Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson were banished. Religion shaped laws, education, and daily life. Church and government often intertwined. The Salem witch trials, 1692 to 1693, series of witchcraft accusations in Massachusetts. 20 executed, 150 imprisoned, driven by fear, superstition, and social tension, showed how mass hysteria and weak legal systems cause injustice, became a symbol of mob mentality and the danger of religious extremism. King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676, war between New England colonists and native alliance led by Metacom. King Philip, deadliest war, by population percent, in early American history. Native defeat led to loss of land, autonomy, and population in New England, marked a turning point toward total English dominance. Impact of European goods. Natives adopted guns, metal tools, textiles, and other items into daily life. Improved hunting and efficiency but caused dependency on trade. Overhunting for furs and animal depletion disrupted ecosystems. European trade brought both benefits and cultural harm. The Columbian Exchange, exchange of plants, animals, and diseases between Europe and the Americas. Europe gained corn, potatoes, tomatoes. Population growth. Americas gained wheat, sugar, livestock, and deadly diseases. Transformed diets, economies, and global connections, but caused mass native deaths. Environmental changes. Colonization caused deforestation, soil depletion, and habitat loss. New species introduced. Plants, animals, weeds. Overhunting, especially for fur, disrupted native and colonial livelihoods, changed both ecosystems and ways of life permanently. Legacy of colonization formed the cultural foundations of the U.S. and Canada. Language, law, religion, created mixed societies of European, native, and African influence, caused massive indigenous population loss, up to 90%, established racial slavery and early systems of inequality. Colonial influences still seen today in governments, settlement patterns, and cultural traditions. Chapter 4, Wars for Empire. Overview. A series of colonial wars, late 1600s mid-1700s, between Britain, France, and Spain for territory, trade, and power in North America, part of larger European conflicts, set the stage for Britain's rise and future tension with its colonies. King William's War, 1688 to 1697, also called War of the League of Augsburg, fought mainly between New England and New France, with native alliances on both sides. No clear winner, colonial borders unchanged, increased native colonial mistrust and militarization in the frontier. Queen Anne's War, 1702 to 1713, North American part of the War of Spanish Succession. Events: raid on Deerfield, 1704, Britain gained Acadia and Newfoundland. Quebec stayed French, outcome still mostly inconclusive. Long-term, expanded British presence in Canada, deepened rivalry with France. War of Jenkins' Ear, 1739 to 1742, conflict between Britain and Spain over Georgia and trade rights in the Caribbean, disrupted Atlantic trade and drained British resources, helped solidify Georgia's role as a British colony and a buffer against Spanish Florida. King George's War, 1744 to 1748, North American part of the War of Austrian Succession. Highlight: British captured Louisbourg, 1745, key French fortress, returned to France by treaty, 1748, angering colonists who felt ignored by Britain, exposed early colonial resentment toward British decisions. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, also called the 7 Years' War, fought over Ohio River Valley claims, British versus French, and their native allies. Turning point in colonial history, ended French power in North America. Key events: 1754, George Washington defeated at Fort Necessity. 1755, British General Braddock killed near Fort Duquesne. 1758, British capture Louisbourg again. 1759, major victory at Quebec, Plains of Abraham. 1760, Montreal surrendered, France's defeat complete. Treaty of Paris, 1763, ended the French and Indian War. France lost nearly all North American territory. Britain gained Canada and Florida from Spain. Spain received Louisiana from France as compensation, redrew the map of North America, making Britain dominant. Consequences of British victory: Britain became North America's main power, but gained massive war debt. Colonists felt proud and more independent, but Britain demanded taxes and control. End of the French threat removed the colony's need for British protection. Tensions over taxation and autonomy led toward the American Revolution. Canadian Corner: French and Indian War equals 7 Years' War, global conflict. Key Canadian battle, Plains of Abraham, 1759, Wolfe. British defeated Montcalm, French, led to French loss of Quebec and Acadian expulsion. La Grande Dérangement, fought globally, Europe, India, Caribbean, and seas. Conclusion: the eve of revolution. Britain reached its colonial peak after 1763. Colonies were richer and more connected to Britain, but also more self-confident. Seeds of revolution: Britain's war debt, new taxes on colonies, colonists' growing independence and resentment of control, foreshadowed the American Revolution. 1775,